In today's weekly update episode, we're going to be talking about Signalgate, we're going to be talking about JD Vance in Greenland, and then Trump talking about running for a third term. All that in today's podcast.
Traveling to consciousness, exploring spiritual journeys to find answers in uncertainty.
What is up, conscious monkeys? Welcome back to another episode of Traveling to Consciousness. As always, I'm your host, Clayton Cuteri, and today's podcast is going to be essentially last week in review with me. We're going to talk about some of the news headlines that I found most interesting. Of course, stuff happens every single day. Something that was pretty tragic and definitely want to put my feelings out there for was there was an earthquake in Southeast Asia, and the total of deaths is over 1,600. So very sad, very tragic. Something to just kind of be aware of, just to kind of note. But I do want to use this podcast and this time to focus on America and some of the political things that occurred, which are not good. They do not look good for the Trump administration. So the very first thing that happened was on March 24th, there was a journalist who said war plans were sent to him. And it's pretty vague. He wrote a document about it that he was basically on a group chat and he got war plans. Pete Hegseth, who is the Secretary of Defense, basically came out and said no war plans were leaked, which is very interesting because after everything kind of unfolded, it's good to point out, and this is good knowledge for you guys to have, is this goes back to our war on language and the war on words. We haven't talked about this in a while because it hasn't really come up too often. But we are back there because war needs to be declared by Congress. So the last time that occurred was World War II. What this means is that America, legally speaking, has not been in a war since World War II. And you're going to sit there and say, well, Clayton, there was the Vietnam War. There was the Korea War. There were so many different wars. What are you talking about? There was no war since World War II. All of those are considered military operations or military exercises because it takes an act of Congress to declare war on another country. So when we talk about the war in Iraq, we talk about the war in Afghanistan, technically speaking, legally speaking, they're not wars. Congress never said, oh, we're definitely going to war there. So technically speaking, there were technically no wars since World War II, which is a whole nother conversation. But so Pete Hegseth, whenever he comes out and says no war plans were leaked, well, technically speaking, languagely speaking, if I'm a lawyer, I say, well, technically he's right because we're not at war with the Houthis. Why did I say the Houthis? The Houthi rebels are the ones in Yemen who are going after cargo ships. They have attacked American ships, but the weird thing is that American ships are not the primary vessels that go through that area. So it's very strange why we would even airstrike the Houthis. Well, a big reason let me just put it like this. Let me give you the facts, which is the majority of transit that goes through there is actually China and Israel cargo ships. So bombing, killing over 52 people in Yemen is not really America first. So I'm not really sure what the goal was there, but we'll get into that a little bit more, I think. Yeah, we'll get into that a little bit more. We'll definitely get into that a little bit more. So that came out, Pete Hegseth saying there were no war plans leaked. Trump then said he stood by Hegseth and said it was a glitch. Just a glitch happened, which doesn't make sense at all. If you know anything about technology, that doesn't just glitch a news journalist into a group chat. There was a hearing about the classified information leak. And what was really sketchy and stood out to me, and note that this was before anything was released, because the reporter over time then released out more stuff. And he released the actual messages. But so before that, I saw the hearing live. And what was really interesting is that numbers and timings tend to be the most classified material. So like how much ammunition a certain gun holds, the how long it takes for something to occur. I think you remember back in the day whenever Hillary Clinton was, what was she doing? Oh, she was running for president against Trump. She came out and said something to the effect of like, it takes 4 minutes for a nuclear launch code to essentially be like issued, like from the president's order. That would be top secret. Like when that happened, nobody talked about it much afterwards, but that is top secret. That's above top secret information. Numbers are the most secret information that exists in the government. So the way they were discussing, I could just tell that it was sketchy and there was totally classified material leaked. Well, then after that hearing, one of Trump's head advisors, Mike Waltz, appeared on a Fox News segment where he started just taking responsibility for it. He was like, this was all me. It's my fault. It's my bad. And then he started saying, I don't know if he said it in the segment, but then he started saying something. He said he created the group chat, but then he said somewhere that he doesn't even have that reporter's phone number and he doesn't know how he got in the group chat. And I'm just going to put it out there that I call BS. It's not rocket science what happened here. He accidentally clicked his name. Maybe it looks like someone else's name. Maybe he accidentally clicked it, but he accidentally or intentionally, whichever one it was, probably accidentally clicked his name and added him to the group chat. So I would sit up here and denounce any sort of glitch scenario, especially if you know anything about Signal or group chats for that matter. So the reporter, his name was Goldberg, and he said and released the messages. And it was really funny to watch this because it was interesting, the spin that was being put out by the Republicans, essentially, which was, well, it was a successful thing, so like we don't need to worry about it. But if we should be mad at anyone, it should be the reporter. Like he's the bad guy in this situation. And so then all the text messages come out and you see them. And the two things that stand out to me are, number one, what we already discussed, which timings, when things were occurring, how much things were going to happen, when they were going to happen, where they were going to happen. Locations are also highly sensitive. So they were saying what time and what targets they were hitting. So like, we're talking that's like above top secret clearance. And then the second thing that stood out to me is when you read these text messages, it reads as though kids cheering on a football team. Whenever I'm excited that the Steelers did something good, I would fist bump and put fire emojis and be like, oh yeah, we won, good stuff. The leaders of America, Pete Hegseth, Waltz, J.D. Vance, treated the killing of 52 people in the same way. They cheered, they said congratulations, they said good job, this is great, amazing. And it just, then the counter argument is, well, they were terrorists. We had to do it. Well, you dig into the finances of the American government and we fund the terrorists. And if it's not us, it's a different country. But we, at least somehow, whether it's the CIA or USAID, which we don't do anymore, but we somehow fund the terrorists. And so to me, it feels to me at times, I want to be respectful to these men in power at some level, but it feels to me at time when we're talking about war, it seems like it's kids playing a video game without any respect for human life. It truly, truly does. And I think if we could just have just an ounce of decorum and an ounce of respect for human life, we could revolutionize this world and achieve world peace very, very quickly. I truly believe that. And so I think the whole debacle, which has now just been shoved under the rug, nobody has talked about it in the last few days. Definitely illegal stuff happened, but it's not going to be my hill to die on. Let's put it like that. A few days later, we have JD Vance going to going to Greenland. And he basically scolded Denmark for not doing enough for Greenland. And he started to basically say, what he said was, and I don't have the quote in front of me, but he said, like, you don't have to worry. We're not gonna bomb you guys. We're not gonna go to war over Greenland. What? To me, when you bring that up, you instantly think, like, wait, that was on the table? Nobody was thinking about that until you said it. And you know that nobody was thinking about it until you said it. So is the Trump administration actually considering going to war over Greenland? And he was met with massive amounts of protest too, which is what cut his trip short. And honestly, I think it, all the power to the people of Greenland. I've said this once before on the podcast. I'll say it again. I support the expansion of the United States because I believe in the Constitution as being one of the greatest documents ever written. I think there are flaws, 100%. But the expansion, the asterisk that comes with expansion, is that the people, the country that we are expanding, that we are bringing into the fabric of the United States, those people have to want to be a part of the United States. They have to. Otherwise, it's all a charade. It's wrong. You're conquering for the sake of conquering. It's what every tyrannical oligarchy, government empire has done throughout the history of the world. And it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. We have to only accept people if they want it. If they say, hey, America literally has all of their shit together, which we do not. We absolutely do not. We're 36, 37, maybe $1 trillion in debt at this point. We signed another bill so we can pump that up to 56 in the next, I think by 2030 or something like that. And we're just like, yeah, you know what? We can take on more countries. Let's strong arm Canada. Let's strong arm Mexico. Let's strong arm Greenland into joining us because, we're doing so great. I believe that we should make America so freaking great, focusing directly on us, which Trump is not doing through bombing the Houthis, through saying that he wants to occupy Gaza. That's not happening. We need to focus on just making America great, like he said, which I fully support. I fully support that slogan, make America great. Again, it's like kind of a weird thing, but just make it great. Make it better than it is now. I like the idea he proposed recently, taking the interest payments on cars and putting that towards a tax write-off. I support that. American-made cars. You buy an American-made cars, you take out a loan, any of the interest that you pay on that loan is a tax write-off. I support that. Something else Trump brought up during the campaign, which I have to keep bringing it up. He brought it up during the campaign, and it was a part of my platform, still is a part of my platform, which is to get rid of income tax. Repeal the 16th Amendment. He brought it up during the campaign. He made a whole 7-10 minute long video on it. He needs to do it. He hasn't talked about it since being in office. I don't know why, but that would be huge. That would be absolutely huge for our country. It would be beautiful. It would be amazing. It would be, chef's kiss. Mwah. Take care of America. Stop spending money on bombing and killing innocent people. Stop spending money and time and effort on removing Palestinians from their land. Let's be honest here. Stop it. Just stop it. He started talking about how he's going to bomb Iran now if they keep making nuclear weapons, which who knows? I think it's a charade. I think pretty much any country in play has nuclear weapons at this point. I think there's just this illusion that it's only like, the big countries have them, but I think it's pretty much every country has nukes at this point. But I just, regardless if that's true or not, the war has to stop. And just the vibe I get, the energy that I see whenever I hear them talking about this killing, and it comes across as, and I say this with all due respect. Again, I know there's someone within the Trump administration that listens to this podcast, because I say this with all due respect, but it sounds like it sounds like children playing in the backyard. Mommy, I have the nukes. Jared, my brother can't have them. This person can't have them. That's not fair. So we'll kill innocent. But the problem is that they're on a national level. They're on the world level. And the consequence are innocent people get killed. It's not just the backyard where maybe the worst case scenario, you break a bone, you get some scrapes. That's fine. That's where you learn. That's like where you learn to, in a sense, channel that, or like understand how to balance that. That's where you like explore. By the time you become president of the United States, you have to like have the wherewithal to realize when you need to be a little bit more diplomatic. And I don't remember if I brought this up in my last podcast, but I think what I'm realizing is, and again, Trump administration, I think you should take this to Trump. You should let him know this, is that do you remember whenever he got shot, he stood up, and the first thing he said is fight, fight, fight. And it got everyone energized. And through studying Trump, one of his greatest attributes is that he is a fighter, that he does fight for what he believes in. He fights. One of the greatest detriments of Trump is that he's a fighter, is that if things aren't going his way, he'll just fight. Okay, it's not working out, we'll bomb you. Oh, okay, you're North Korea, you're creating nuclear weapons, we'll nuke you. And there has to be, I know that there is a way of better decorum such that on a national level, we don't have to insult people. Like, for instance, Denmark's supposed to be one of our allies, and yet we go into Greenland and just bash them. Maybe we don't see eye to eye with Iran. That's fine. I get it. But why are we driving the wedge deeper? Why are we dividing ourselves more from these countries? I think it's silly. I really do. I think that if you wanted to leave a great legacy, you would do everything in your power to bring people together. And I don't know if anyone's pointed it out to Trump, but I would love to. And maybe no one will even show him this. Send him this podcast and be like, hey man, like, he has some interesting takes. But the big thing that I would say is he has to realize that you can't just always resort to fighting. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work. An eye for an eye, right? An eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind. Yeah, and the last piece of just I'll leave it on this note. The last piece of information that came out probably a couple hours ago is that Trump was in an ABC, I think it was ABC or NBC, one of the BCs, and he was interviewed and they asked him, I don't know how it came up, but he essentially said that running for a third term is not out of the question. If you don't know, the 22nd Amendment basically says that you can only be president for 2 terms. And he floated that he could have some sort of situation where J.D. Vance runs. He's on the ticket as a vice president. J.D. Vance steps aside. He becomes president. He talked about how he just works and wants to work until he dies. And I mean, I respect that, but you know, you gotta let go at some point. I think it's a good example of maybe a situation where maybe the ego is becoming a little too much and you just got to let go. You can't hang on to something forever. And again, I think that if he does have an ego, I get that. But if you want that ego, if you want to be remembered for being great, like truly great, these last few months, like, man, there's too many things coming out where I just think that he's taking his legacy in the wrong direction. I mean, I don't know if I've shared this on the podcast before, but I voted for him in 2016. I was all for it, man. I was in college, so I was, in the bros, had a lot of bro energy, and I love the idea of, you know, him talking the way he felt like talking. You never heard it from like a politician before. He wasn't a politician. He was a businessman. Our economy was in trouble. He was going to run our country like a business. That was my vibe. I was like, you know, the economy is my number one thing right now. I'm in college. I'm going to be out of college. I want a good economy so I can get a job. That was like my whole thing. I went all in though. I became like a whole MAGA bro, if you will. But man, since then, like, it's teetering. It's, I don't know I have ideas, of course, what's going on behind the scenes, but I think that his legacy may be in jeopardy if he keeps heading down this path. I'll just leave it at that. But one thing I will not leave is you guys. So hopefully you shared this. I'd love it if you shared this podcast because I think it's great. If you think it's great, that's even greater. But what's even greatest is that I will see all of you in the 6th dimension.